Hello and welcome to the Analyst by Vajiram and Ravi, your daily companion for mastering current affairs for UPSC. It's July 4th, 2025 and today's edition brings you two powerful analysis articles specially tailored for Mains 2025. First, we break down the Defense Acquisition Council's approval of the mega defense deals, what it means for self-reliance, capability and our national security. Then, we reflect on the claim that parliamentary disruptions have reduced, what improved, what hasn't, and why parliamentary productivity still matters. Our Prelims 2026 Relevant Simplified section covers a wide range of issues from custodial torture to healthy aging initiatives. So let's begin. Hey guys, I hope you all are doing well. I hope your preparation is going fine. So with this, we are going to start with the very first article today, which relates to the Defense Acquisition Council recently approving a mammoth sum of 1.05 lakh crore to boost our defense indigenization. Defense indigenization refers to the process of how we are trying to produce, manufacture and also maintain and repair our defense equipments, be it from the air forces, then naval forces and also the armed forces. So we are talking about a wide range of technologies which our own domestic manufacturers, our own private sector and both the public sector will be going to be engaged in. So we are going to look at via the lens of GS2 and GS3, mainly via GS3 where we have to talk about the changes in the industrial policy, where recently the government of India is trying to promote defense manufacturing. From the perspective of infrastructure, we are going to look into how the defense infrastructure is going to improve over the years. And also, we cannot ignore the perspective of GS2, where we also have to talk about the policies and the politics of the developed and developing countries when it pertains to defense exports. Defense exports is also the field which we are trying to diversify to actually bring in more foreign investment, to also bring in foreign exchange to our country. We'll be starting with this, with the recent announcements, with the recent approvals by the Defense Acquisition Council. Now, Defense Acquisition Council, we have to understand, is a very important organization within the Ministry of Defense which pertains to the acquisition of various capital components for the defense sector. When we talk about the capital components, it generally refers to the various armored vehicles, to the fighter jets, to the sensitive technologies that we need to bolster the defense capabilities of our country. Now note that these are not the regular gun and shell or the day-to-day maintenance operations that the defense sector needs. These are long-term investments by any country that is made to boost its defense capabilities. Now, in the comment section, can you let me know whether the same is included for the calculation of our GDP or not? Because we have to talk about, whenever we are talking about capital investments, this has to be made distinguished, the capital investments that we make in the defense sector. Let me know in the comments. Now, when we talk about the formation of the DAC, it was actually formed after the Kargil War. You know, the Kargil War had so many lessons for us. Now, one of those lessons was how India lacked its own defense equipments, because we are still right now a major arms importer, be it the Rafale jets, be it the various tankers, be it the various sensitive equipments. We are still dependent on the rest of the world. So that is why the Kargil Review Committee recommended that we need to set up an acquisition council which will be looking and recommending the various investment that we need in this field. Now, this is headed by the defense minister of our country, and also this is including the various other members such as the Minister of State for Defense, the Chief of Defense Staff, the chiefs of all the armed forces such as the Army, Navy, Air Force, Defense Secretary, DRDO Chief and various other members, mainly the various secretaries in the Ministry of Defense and various other departments. Now, the main purpose we know is to actually enhance the transparency, efficiency and most importantly to promote domestic value addition in the manufacturing sector. We are going to look into the various initiatives later, but firstly let us look into what was the recent initiative, what were all the sensitive technologies, and this 1.05 lakh crore will be allocated under into. Now firstly we will be trying to manufacture domestically various quick reaction surface to air missiles, or these systems as you can see in this image. Now this is a particular vehicle which you can see, on top of it is mounted a particular weapon that will be looking at various missiles and it will be trying to intercept it, right? Next, we also will be trying to manufacture armored recovery vehicles which will be helping us in our armed operations. We will be also signing up the most important equipment as of now, because in recent times we have so many drones attacks across so many other countries, right? In fact, even in Operation Sindoor, we have also seen how India has actively used drones, and also how Pakistani forces sent drones. Now, to deactivate those drones, we actually use one of these equipments known as electronic warfare systems to destabilize the circuit boards of those drones. This is possible via this EWS. Next, we also are spending money on the integrated common inventory management system to have a digital portal on which the defense forces, the armed forces, they can actually look into the portal and the inventories they have for various weapons. Apart from this, we also have various mode mines and countermeasure vehicles. Next, we also have super rapid gun mount, especially for the naval forces, such as shown here. Right, then we'll be also investing a lot of amount for naval warfare, for undersea warfare via submersible autonomous vehicles, and also via indigenous naval vehicles. So these are all the various components where we are going to push for, mainly because we have the larger, broader agenda of defense indigenization, which refers to a country's own capability, as I told before, to design defense systems, to manufacture, and also to maintain them. Because these three particular sectors are heavily interlinked when we talk about building a proper defense supply chain within the country. And when we talk about within the country, the main goal here is to actually becoming Atmanirbhar, because we have always since time immemorial dependent on countries such as France, Russia, the United States for our defense imports. So mainly we have to understand, right now we are at 50% when we talk about the dependency. So that we have to reduce it, because we have to attain Atmanirbharta, and that is where we have to actually attain self-reliance in the country. And also, if you can look at the recent trends over a period of time, especially over the last 10 years, 10 to 12 years, we have seen a 2.6x increase in the defense budget. It has gone from 2.53 from 2013-14 levels to 6.81 lakh crores. This is actually a very positive development. Now, why do we need to have better indigenization? Firstly, obviously we have to reduce our import bill, because we are spending a lot of money abroad, and especially in dollars, we are leading to depletion of dollars in the foreign exchange of our Reserve Bank of India. And that is where we have to understand this will be saving around $3 to $5 billion per year. And that is where it is having the most significance when we talk about saving the taxpayers' money. And the best would be if we can try to invest this within the country itself. We can invest in our startups, we can invest in our PSUs, we can invest in our defense companies, which can actually try to manufacture them instead of importing them. Next, strategic autonomy is the keyword right now. Whenever writing your mains answers, do not forget to use this kind of keywords, because strategic autonomy is something which we see right now. Because even when we talk about the recent times, we see how US and Russia is at against each other sometimes, and also we have seen how US and the Western countries have imposed so many sanctions on Russia, which means that if we try to procure arms from Russia, maybe India will be having some other considerations when we talk about maintaining good relations with the West, right? So that is why we have to talk about how India can maintain its own independence when it's trying to making choices internationally, be it taking sides, be it taking crude oil from Russia, be it actually importing various other defense parts. And also right now, when we are trying to manufacture the same, we are also trying to have various components manufactured within the country. We are trying to avoid sanctions, especially in the backdrop of Russia-Ukraine war, so which will be trying to boost our own defense capabilities. And if our defense capabilities increase over the time, we will be also having better defense systems like the better Tejas BrahMos missile. According to recent reports, it has also been seen that how BrahMos is actually one of the rarest missiles in the entire world, which cannot be easily intercepted even with the modern technologies. Next, obviously, any kind of manufacturing process will be boosting the employability of our country. It will be creating a lot of jobs, right? It can be also be resulting in various employment opportunities, mainly for the various other sectors such as the MSME sectors, right? According to various reports, there will be a direct creation of 1.5 lakh jobs, and mainly via the various defense corridors that the country is setting up right now in Uttar Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, we are also seeing a heavy amount of MSME growth in the region. Next, also with reference to the various technological spin-offs, for example, say that we can actually use drones and AI for dual purposes. So this will be also helping us to learn from the various technologies abroad, and this also can be applied through various commercial purposes too. The same defense technologies can be later be installed as bio toilets, bulletproof jackets for the police forces and so on. And at the end of the day, one of the most important policy agenda of the country is right now to increase the defense exports. We have exports markets ranging from Philippines to Myanmar to Mauritius, and we have more than 85 countries who are interested in our own defense products. So this will be also bringing in a lot of foreign exchange for us to, right, to the tune of around 16,000 crore rupees. This has seen actually a 10x rise from 2016 levels. So that is mean we are actually seeing a lot of amount of potential for the same. And that is why the government of India over a period of time have had so many proposals to initiate the defense manufacturing in the country. We have to start with the 2016 Defense Procurement Policy, which was initiated after Dhirendra Singh committee recommendation, who recommended that there should be buy Indian category. And this is when the government of India is buying defense equipments, they have to have a new category known as the buy Indian. So this is where we are trying to promote more Indian manufacturing of defense equipments. Next, we also have the 2018 IDEX platform and the IDEX Prime platform in 2022, which generally is actually a network of startups, MSMEs, academia, so for example the universities in the countries, where they are actually looking at seed funding, incubation and various other grants for the research and development that has to take for the upgradation of our defense technologies, right? Be the BrahMos, be the Tejas, we can actually give funds, that the government of India has been actively giving funds to those startups to bolster the research and development so that tomorrow they can actually try to produce some missiles, some weapons for us. Next, the naval forces have something which we has the sprint scheme by the sprint challenges, where the naval authorities such as the DIO and the NIIO is looking at developing 75 indigenous technologies for Indian naval forces. So this is also something which we have to keep in mind. Next, indigenous manufacturing push has been also diversified via other policies such as procurement, increasing the procurement to around 68% from domestic companies, which was earlier at 54% in 2018-19. So we are trying to produce more weapons and technologies directly from the domestic companies in India. Along with that, we are also trying to promote around up to 74% of FDI. Now, we are trying to bring in foreign investments. We have so many foreign companies such as Lockheed Martin, Rafale, where we also have a part of the defense deal, that a part of the money that we are spending on those countries, defense procurements, we have to invest some part of the money in India also. So apart from that, we are also having FDI to the tune of 74%. Next, we are also trying to construct the defense industrial corridors, mainly in Tamil Nadu and Uttar Pradesh, which is slated to create so many jobs. And also, if we have so many corridors, which are actually places where similar companies will be situated to manufacture defense components, this will be helping, the overall defense industrial sector in the country. Next, we also have something which we know as a positive indigenization list. So this means that there are several kind of items within these lists where we are trying to ban imports of such 400 plus items, and we are trying to maintain some A, B, C, D kind of components which we shall only be trying to procure from Indian domestic companies itself. And at the end of the day, we also have a portal known as the e-biz portal, which is looking at the online licensing norms, especially for startups, for some companies who are trying to have increased defense investments in the country. Now, when we talk about this 1.05 lakh crore deal, we have to actually understand what it means for the country. Firstly, we recently saw the Operation Sindoor in full swing, where our defense capabilities were showcased not only to Pakistan but to the entire world. We have actually tried to follow the age-old doctrine where we are trying to retaliate with precision strikes without violating any territorial norms. This was actually followed by India since Balako 2019. And here we are not trying to become aggressive with our neighbors, we are trying to retaliate. But when we are retaliating, we are doing so with precision strikes, as we have seen also in the various strikes via the various satellite images that were displayed by the armed forces in the various conferences after the Operation Sindoor. Next, we have to also infuse technology right now in defense sector. You must have also heard about the Russia-Ukraine crisis and how Ukraine, with some small drones, they have destabilized the Russian air forces, right? You can tell me in the comments how that operation took place and what was the name of this particular operation. But here we are right now in an age where artificial intelligence enabled technologies, where electronic technologies, where we are right now not combating man to man. We are trying to have non-contact battles, and mainly we are also maybe seeing undersea warfare, because submarines and naval forces, they have immense capabilities when we talk about the range, right? So this is where we are trying to promote right now the technological aspect. Next, since 2020-21, ever since the COVID pandemic, we have seen Atmanirbharta in most of the domestic manufacturing capabilities. In defense also, we are trying to do the same, because when we look at the CPRI 2025 report, which talks about the major defense status across the entire world, when we talk about the global share of the imports of the ranking of the entire world, we see that at first we have Ukraine, at second we have India. That means India is actually importing a lot of defense equipments when we talk about the entire world. So we have a potential to reduce our imports and increase our exports, right? And also increase our domestic expenditure. So this is where the DRDO, the MSME, the private sector right now will be getting this kind of funds to the tune of 1.05 lakh crore. What they will be doing, they will be trying to procure and kind of various investments by various capital say setups, and they will be trying to manufacture for us. And this is also following the DPEPP policy of 2020. Now this is actually the policy which is also eyeing the defense exports of our country, especially in aerospace and defense goods and services, right? So this is actually trying to push the Make in India ambition in design, development and also exports of our components via special focus on the MSMEs and the startups and also the various traditional companies. And this will be also done via attracting FDI and export promotion and research and development in the country. Next, there is a need for tri-service coordination right now, as we have seen in the Operation Sindoor also. There are various undisclosed facts and figures, but it has been kind of seen that there was an harmony between the armed forces. So this was actually followed by the recommendations by the Kargil review and the Shedkar committee recommendations. Now this is actually from a 2019 article, so this statement is not valid anymore. But as we can see, these are the three committees which you can write in your mains answers to give recommendations, right? Now all of them have recommended various kind of reforms for Ministry of Defense when we talk about the National Security Strategy, Chief of Defense Staff, which even the Kargil Committee, right, the Naresh Chandra Committee and the Shedkar Committee have had recommend, right? Now, when we talk about the theatre commands, when we talk about the integration of Ministry of Defense with the services headquarters, right? So these were all the recommendations which were given for tri-service kind of cooperation. So you can look at the other recommendations in the handout, very extremely crucial for your mains examination. Now, after this, we also have to talk about the international developments. China, as you know, right now, they are going through the modernization of their PLA, right? People's Liberation Army, which is their armed forces, right? All of the armed forces. So they are investing a lot of money in that. They are trying to have indigenous, missile systems, right? Many of them are still not tested, or if they are tested, their capabilities are not yet out in the public domain. So India cannot be left behind. Next, the Indo-Pacific is right now a theater where China is present, where the Western countries are present, and India is actually present there physically themselves. So this is where in the Himalayas, in the Indo-Pacific, we have to right now boost our capabilities of defense, because China is an aggressive factor in both of the regions, right? And if China becomes stronger in either of this, there can be immense amount of troubles for us. Next, the Russia-Ukraine war. is, and also the recent Iran and Israel and the US intervention within the same have had so many lessons for us. We have to learn how to use our technologies properly. We have to actually talk about the challenges that we have and how we have to improve it over the period of time. So these international aspects also we have to keep in mind. But there are various challenges. Firstly, when we talk about the budget, it is a constraint because it is still less than around 2% of the GDP. For modernization and effective indigenization, we need 3% of the GDP. Infrastructure capabilities and gaps still remain because the public sector enterprises, government-owned enterprises, they are lacking scale and technological sophistication, right? They do not have those kind of upgrades. That is why we need more amount of capital investments right now. They must be using this money. Private sector role is still limited. So we have to increase the role of the Tatas, the Adanis who are trying to boost the defense production. Next, when we talk about the low level of research and development spending in the country, already we know that is less than 1% when we talk about the research and development funding in all the sectors, including the defense sector. But when we talk about the same, when we have to, improve our capabilities, we have to increase that to more than 1%, only regarding the research and development. And at the end of the day, economies of scale must be enhanced because we need to have exports, we need to also have for our defense domestic requirements. So that is why we have to increase the production over a period of time. So that is why the best way forward is to boost the private sector investment role to 50% of the total production. That is why most of the money of this particular approval must be going to the private sector, and they should be producing more of the, say, defense components. Next, the Defense Export Promotion Agency must be set up, which will be looking only at increasing the exports specially. The Defense Diplomacy Division under Ministry of External Affairs must also be set up to improve the ties and also market our products abroad when we talk about the defense sector. Also, when we talk about the exports, we have to talk about bundling the deals with repair and maintenance too, apart from the purchase of our defense sector. And at the end of the day, we must be also having the non-lapsable defense modernization fund, which was proposed in the budget 2023-24. So these are all the recommendations that we have to keep in mind. But firstly, right now, look at this 2020 PYQ from GS4. This is actually a case study where a chairman of BHARAT Missiles Limited is actually pondering whether the exports related to defense is ethical or not. Pause the screen, it is extremely important. You read the case study, you answer the 1 and 2 questions in the comments. I will be giving you feedback. Also, I will be giving you feedback for the mains practice questions in the analysis articles. You practice this for introduction, you can use this data. Now we'll be moving on to the next one. In this article, guys, our Speaker of the Lok Sabha is making a statement that disruptions in the parliament have significantly declined because the last session of the parliament was actually a kind of a productive one, right? And also is going on to say that it will be paving a way for more substantial debates. And also, when we talk about the urban local bodies, they must also be adopting similar procedures. Now, in this article, we also have so many recommendations for the urban local bodies. We know that they need to be having more funds and functioning, and at the end of the day, much more stronger debates at the local level. But here in this article, we are going to look at mainly the parliamentary functioning aspect, which is a very important topic for your GS2, how the parliament and the state legislature functions, and also what are the various issues if they are not. So, when we talk about the frequent disruptions in the parliament, firstly we need to understand one very basic term, that is, what do you mean by parliament productivity? You know, we the people of our country, we the people of India have actually sent our MLAs and MPs to the legislatures in the state and the center respectively. Now we have sent them for a purpose to legislate, to debate, to bring out various local, state issues and the national issues, and frame legislations and talk about how we can actually ensure the accountability of the executive. Because we know that in our Indian parliamentary system, the executive, mainly the chief ministers at the state level, the prime minister at the center, they are accountable to the parliament. You let me know in the comments what are the various tools that the parliament and the state legislatures can use to make the executive accountable. Now when we have the executive answerable to the parliament, We need to function properly when we talk about how the debates are going on, how the bills are being passed, how if the bills are being referred to some committees, how those committees are performing well. So these are the various aspects of legislative work that must be accomplished during any session of the parliament. That is what we mean by parliamentary productivity. In layman terms, we also can define it via various factors. How many number of sittings a particular session of that house is having in that period? What is the length of each sitting? What is the number of members who are present if some of the MPs are absent, some of the MLAs are absent from the discussion, and especially during most important bills, and if at all there are various disruptions. Now disruptions are actually, a dual event. Sometimes they can look very funny, but they are not. When we talk about the parliament functioning, right, the various MLAs and MPs throwing chappals, destroying chairs, coming at the well of the speaker and shouting nonsense, these are not done, right? Because this is a parliament, this is a state legislature assemblies we are talking about, where our own choice of people have went there, fought elections, campaigned, took our votes, and actually promised something of a better future. So if they are creating nuisance there, they are shouting slogans, they are halting the legislative function, they are not making the executive accountable, in a constructive way, they are doing in a destructive way, they are storming the well of the house, they are not letting the speaker speak, or they are not letting the other members speak, there are walkouts, right? There are also various debates which are being boycotted. So these are actually disruptions, these are unwanted. Sometimes you can tell me that okay, these are also some ways where we can impose the will of the opposition on the ruling party. But that is not always the case, because sometimes the opposition members, they adopt such practices which do not run well with the governance of the day, right? Because if, we look at various challenges right now, we'll be trying to understand here how the functioning is not properly done over a period of time. Now, the fault here is not only with the opposition parties, it is also when we talk about the ruling parties who actually run the majority in the houses. Firstly, when we talk about the instances of the question hour in recent times, so it has only functioned for around 60% in the Lok Sabha and 52% in the Rajya Sabha during the 17th Lok Sabha, right? So this means that the question hour, which is a very important period, right, during the house where the executive is actually brought into question, that is not functioning properly. And mainly there are various reasons to blame here, mainly by the agenda that has been set by the government of the day. Next, when we talk about the committee, there are so many challenges mainly via the committee here. Firstly, when we talk about the committee reports, they are not utilized properly, because sometimes the committee reports on various important bills, legislations, they are not sometimes discussed at all. 20% of the PSA recommendations only have been implemented as of now. The rest of them are not at the central level. When we talk about the committees again, they are extremely weak. Sometimes they do not have experts, right? For example, if I am legislating an act on the aircraft and aviation sector, so do I not need experienced pilots or aviation industry experts within the committee? Sometimes it has not been seen here. So if at all that act is being passed, it will not be having the depth, correct? Often they involve narrow stakeholder interests, right? Mainly it has been seen that the private sector, the business sector influence a lot of the committee functioning. Next, also the committees and their tenure is of very short nature. So if it is of very short nature, the committee will not be functioning for a longer period of time. If it is not functioning for a longer period of time, it will be hindering the institutional memory, which means typically that any institute to function properly, they must be having some time. Otherwise, it cannot deliver on the promises, right? If it cannot deliver on the promises, it erodes the very institution itself, right? And definitely the long-term expertise is sacrificed in this way. Next, when we talk about the legislative review, it is not present in our country. When we talk about any law which has been passed, so that law must be actually be functioning over a period of time, and there must be mechanisms via the parliament, right, to actually understand how that particular law will be functioning over a period of time. So in India, we do not have any mechanism to track how a law will be functioning if at all it is passed. For example, the farm laws were repealed after it was passed. So that means that there were not proper effectiveness tests. Next, also we have lack of technical research support, right? Mainly the MPs, mainly the private MPs, right? Or the MLAs who are not in power, they need research staff of themselves. So they struggle with data and policy. Sometimes they are not experts in their particular domain. They need various interns, various research associates to deliver on the promises. That is also some of the issues. And at the end of the day, we also have so many reports by so many committees on similar subjects. So that leads to a lot of chaos and minimal amount of work. Now, when we have discussed the challenges, now this kind of data is extremely important for your upcoming mains. Please do write this kind of data down, because when we talk about the parliamentary functioning, right, only we have to understand for half of its scheduled time our parliament has functioned, right, and this is when we talk about both the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. Now, when we talk about the legislative business, only one bill has been passed in the first 6 months of this particular term. This is the lowest in the last 6 Lok Sabha term. When we talk about the 18th Lok Sabha, right, which is the ongoing one, which is going on right now, only one bill has been passed in the first 6 months, right? But yeah, the next session was actually a productive one, where we actually saw a lot of bills being passed. And also we had the budget session, and it has always been witnessed that the budget session is actually one of the most productive sessions, right? So that is one side of the debate also. Also, when we look at the question hour, as we have already seen earlier, right, it is functioning way less, right? When we talk about the historical trend, in recent times it has been functioning extremely less. Also, when we talk about the adjournment motions, it has been zero since 16th, 17th and 18th Lok Sabha terms. Next, we need to discuss about the private member business, because they generally have Fridays around 2.5 hours to bring any of their bill, and that has also seen decline in the recent terms. Also, the Lok Sabha is functioning without any deputy speaker since 2019, and here, the deputy speaker's role is extremely important to actually have an alternative kind of a mechanism, because generally, conventionally, deputy speaker generally came from the opposition party. Now, we need some reforms, definitely. These are the various issues. So, firstly, we need to institutionalize, and we need to try to have a post-legislature scrutiny. We have already discussed about how we do not have any mechanism to see a law's effectiveness if it is passed. We have to follow the UK model, which actually does implementation reviews of that laws every 3 to 5 years. And they examine various committees. If the laws are not functioning properly, they are expunged. Next, we also have to revitalize the committees right now. We have to mandate debate on the very committee reports, so that we can bring more perspectives. We also need to have various ministerial responses to recommendations submitted maybe by constitutional bodies such as UPSC, such as various other authorities such as the Election Commission of India. So their recommendations must be discussed, and that must be made mandatory. We also have to translate the various findings of the committees into various languages. Sometimes the translation is not available, so all of the MPs cannot properly have the approaches here. So that can be translated via various infographics, videos for easy reach and understanding. And also we should be giving dedicated research staff and data analysts to various committees and also to the private members, so that they can have their own research and development. Next, we need to use technology, because technology brings in transparency, and technology plus transparency is actually trust in governance. Use these quotations in your mains answers. Now, we can use AI, we can use big data, we can use the various insights that we get from various other technologies to have better application within the parliament themselves. We can, for example, track expenditure trends. We can actually audit the various issues that come across the government departments. So these kind of tools must be available to the MPs and the MLAs. Also, we must be trying to have the MPs various evidences using data policy tools, correct? And at the end of the day, we need to also make the report public via various digital portals, via automated portals here, right? So that we cannot have any implementation lag in the real time. Finally, we have to fix the question hour. so that the debate takes place. We have to penalize the disruptions. For example, MLAs or MPs who are disrupting via this kind of unparliamentary behavior, they can have their salary cuts. And also, Prime Minister's questions, like the model of the UK, must be held as a weekly 30-minute session, right? So this is what we can do for the betterment of our country. And also, we are discussing this mainly on the background of 2021 question, how Parliament is able to ensure the accountability of the executive. I hope some of the ideas are clear. Also, attempt this 22 PYQ in the comments below and practice the question here. Now on to the simplified articles. Guys, the Hindu today has a very important editorial today on custodial torture in our prisons. This is extremely important for Indian polity and governance for our prelims examination, mainly regarding the constitutional rights and GS2, where we need to look at the constitutional features. When we talk about the recent custodial torture event, we have seen the Ajit Kumar case, where Ajit Kumar, actually, who was a temple guard, he died in custody on some allegation by a woman that he stole some goods from that particular person. The police arrested this individual, allegedly tortured, and allegedly the individual passed away in police custody. This reflects a very serious issue in the country, which also has been reflected via various movies, some of which also you can mention in the comments below. Now, when we talk about defining custodial torture, we have to understand that it is an infliction of physical and also mental suffering on individuals by the police, judiciary, or the military forces, especially when you are in custody. The forms can be physical, for example, beatings, electric shocks, sexual violence, mainly for women. Also psychological, for example, sleep deprivation, threats, and also humiliation. When we talk about the data, the most number of states that we can find the cases are from Maharashtra, Gujarat, UP, Tamil Nadu, Bihar. And according to NCRB data, it has also been reported that as of now, according to last data from 21-22, there are cases of around 175 reported deaths. These are reported deaths, right? Imagine what would be the actual case here. And this has risen from 100 cases in 2020-21. Now, mainly when we look at the profile of the people who are suffering police torture, custodial torture, we generally see the people coming from marginalized backgrounds. That is why they are not aware that there are constitutional and legal safeguards against them. When we talk about the constitutional provisions, we have the fundamental rights, most importantly by the Article 21, which is talking about the right to life and dignity. That means definitely, evidently, there must not be any torture even after you are convicted. Be in the police station, be it after you have been convicted, there must not be any torture ever in prison, right? Also, Article 20 subclause 1, Article 20 subclause 3, they tell that you cannot be persecuted against a particular law which is not in force when you were arrested or you were convicted on some charges, right? And also you cannot be allowed or you should not be able to testify against yourself. These are the things which the police do because they know that these marginalized sections, individuals, they are not aware of their constitutional rights. They actually give these threats and they get away. Also, when we talk about the legal provisions which are now part of the BNS, BNSS, right? These were actually present earlier in the IPC or the Indian Evidence Act. When we talk about the confessions which the police generally gets via threat or coercion, these are actually invalid, right? But still they do, because again, you have to remember the profile of the people that the police pick up and torture, right? They are generally the poorer sections. They are not aware of the IPC. They are not aware of the recent BNS or BNSS provisions, right? They are too busy in making their life and livelihood, providing for their families, right? We also have various provisions of the IPC who actually look at the various punishments for any hurt or grievous hurt or confessions by the police, correct? So the police is actually liable for this kind of penalties. Now, when we talk about the most important provision, these are coming from the Supreme Court cases. Firstly, we have to understand the D.K. Basu case of 1997, where Supreme Court gave 11 guidelines that the police must be adhering to refrain from any custodial torture, because the Supreme Court observed that despite we are not a signatory to the United Conventions Against Torture, which India signed in 1997 but did not ratify as of now, that does not mean that we are liable to have these various torturous events. Also, the state of Uttar Pradesh versus Ram Sagar Yadav 1985 case actually talks about the various provisions of these protections that are available to the prisoners in such cases. Also, the Nambi Narayan case of 2018, where we have seen the famous scientist Nambi Narayan was once accused by the CBI falsely of espionage charges. So in 2018, the Supreme Court relieved of such allegations and actually gave him a fresh slate of life. So here the Supreme Court highlighted the amount of psychological and mental torture that a person faces in such cases. And apart from that, we also have the NHRC, the National Human Rights Commission guidelines, that reporting of custodial death or rape must be taking place within 24 hours of occurrence, but in real life, that is not being followed. That is why we need to adopt a way forward. We need to follow the DK Basu guidelines. Mandatory safeguards such as arrest memo must be given. Medical examination must be done of the prisoners, and also the family must be informed at the earliest. We must be creating independent complaint board at the state and the district level to investigate the police excess, generally via a senior official, mainly from the IPS ranks. We also have to install body cameras to the various uniforms of the police authorities, so that the recordings are there. Later, if at all some allegations are there, we can look into the same. India have to also realize that, according to various experts, they say it is a high time to legislate the law on anti-torture. Actually, in 2017, there was a bill which actually focused on defining torture to include physical, mental torture at prisons, hold the state responsible for any kind of injury. Also, having punishment for officials if at all they are getting any evidence against the same, the state protection of the victims of torture, and also the justifiable compensation that must be provided. But we have to understand that we have around 170 signatories of the United Nations Conventions Against Torture, and we have to understand that India is among the 8 countries, right, as of now, who did not actually pass this convention. And if you are passing this convention, you have to have a national law, which India tried to bring in 2017, but it has not been passed as of now. Correct? Now, there also need to be various fast track trials where India must be having some courts or some specialized institutions which will be looking at such cases. And at the end of the day, we have to also follow Prakash Singh case reforms by the Supreme Court, where Supreme Court actually talked about various reforms, starting from the police stations to training to inclusion of women in the forces. So these kind of reforms are long overdue. So now let me show you some PYQs. You can attempt this 2020 PYQ in the comment which is related to judicial custody. You also give me the explanation for the same. Also have a look at the 2014 mains PYQ. Move on to the next one. Guys, recently, the debate right now is on the IPS appointments in the Central Armed Police Forces, an extremely important topic from GST perspective, mainly via the security forces and agencies in the country. Firstly, let us understand properly, briefly, what the Central Armed Police Forces are. Generally, they are under the Ministry of Home Affairs, and they are composed of mainly some institutions which are looking at the borders of our country. Apart from them, we have some other specialized institutions too. Mainly when we talk about the Indian borders, right? When we talk about the India-Myanmar border, we have the Assam Rifles, who is actually a part of the CAPF manning this border. When we talk about the Nepal and Bhutan border, it is actually the Shastra Seema Bal. When we talk about the India-Pakistan border and the India-Bangladesh border, it has been patrolled by the BSF, the Border Security Forces. When we talk about the India and China and the Tibetan region, we have the Indo-Tibetan Border Police. So these are actually the various centralized forces, right, under the Ministry of Home Affairs, not the Ministry of Defense, who is looking at these borders, right? Mainly the BSF, right, the ITBP, the SSB, the Assam Rifles, they are looking at the borders. But apart from them, we have the Central Reserve Police Forces, which is looking at the internal security and counter-insurgency, mainly to fight against the Naxals, right? Also, we have the CISF, Central Industrial Security Forces, which is looking at the various protection of infrastructure in the country related to airports, ports, PSUs, right? Also, at the end of the day, we have the NSG, National Security Guard. Very important institution, mainly formed after Operation Blue Star. You can mention why this Operation Blue Star was held in which year in the comments, right? And it is mainly looking at the anti-terrorism missions in the country, right? Now, when we talk about the recent controversy, which is of importance as of now, the government of India, mainly the Ministry of Home Affairs, generally prefers more IPS officers in the CAPF at the higher and the senior levels. Presently, as of now, 20% to the rank of the DIG in the CAPF and the 50% post in the rank of the IG in the CAPF are reserved only for the IPS officers. So, the CAPF personnel, they can move up the ladder but extremely slowly, right? Because the dominance of the IPS officers at the top is extremely huge. And here, when we talk about the main reason, the government generally believes that the IPS officers have broader experience coming from the state, handling the state operations, and also they have better inter-service integration, right? They have better liaison with the ministries, with the various departments. So they think that the CAPF, which are only constrained within that security kind of architecture, they are not able to fulfill those demands. But it is completely wrong, because there are some issues with IPS deputation. Firstly, simply we have too many IPS in the CAPF. We have to understand these forces are operating specialized functions, right? Some are there in the Jammu and Kashmir in the form of BSF. Some of them are at the Myanmar border in the Assam Rifles. Some of them are working at the airports, in the form of the CISF. They have gained experience in their fields, right? So they do not possess that amount of expertise. Correct? And also when they are in the service, they actually block internal promotions. That actually kind of also leads to demoralization of the forces, because the group A CAPF officers, they feel that they are subordinate to their IPS of seniors, right? And also when we talk about the stagnation, correct? Also when we talk about the commandant, it takes 25 years within the CAPF, right? But it should only take around 13 years. And at the end of the day, they also feel that they have less control, because the CAPF, they cannot develop their own cadre leadership, and that is extremely important when we look at the security forces. That is why Supreme Court recently have taken some steps which the Ministry of Home Affairs is not following according to this article, right? The Supreme Court in 2025, May 2025, by the Sanjay Prakash case, it told that the CAPF group officers must be into the organized services, because around 13,000 CAPF officers would have been benefited with reference to the promotion of these officers to higher positions, because the Supreme Court ordered that IPS deputation posts must be reduced at the DIG to the IG levels, so that more of the internal promotions can happen. And the timeline, it's said to be around 2 years. Despite that, the government of India via the Home Ministry, who is actually the cadre controlling authority for both the IPS and the CAPF, they have continued to prefer the IPS appointments in recent times. So that is a cause of concern. And that is why we have to understand that, the experts say that we have to implement the Supreme Court order in full, because we need to amend this kind of recruitment rules. We have to moralize, we have to increase the motivation, the forces, and we have to have better training enhancement for them. At the end of the day, the cadre review and coordination must be done at an effective level. So that is why the Supreme Court judgment must be implemented in letter and spirit. So on to the next one. Recently, Holtec Limited, a private company, a US-based company, is looking forward to invest in our small modular reactors. These are nuclear reactors, mainly important from the perspective of general science from prelims and GS3 infrastructure with reference to energy sector. Now, when we talk about the small modular reactors, from the very name you can understand, these are modular reactors. That means they are very easy to manufacture at various factories. They are very easy to assemble in parts, and also to have proper nuclear energy within the same. Because when we talk about the large and conventional reactors, right, they are actually very risky and very costly to set up. But when we talk about the small ones, they take less land, they can be easily be manufactured because they are factory built, and they are easy to transport and install, right? Also, when we talk about the safety apparatus, when we talk about the cooling options, they can be cooled via proper air cooling, and that is actually a very safe approach. But when we talk about the energy generation capabilities, they are actually quite less, to be around at equal or less than 300 megawatt electricity, but the ease of setting up of the same and the ease of operation is much more better, because they can be easily be used at very remote areas where power is not reaching properly from the coal thermal power plants or the renewable energy. So there we can set up the nuclear reactors, which are small and modular, right? And also they can be easily be replacing the old coal power plants which are heavily polluting. So green energy transmission, and also at the end of the day, the quick deployment means that it is easy to set up and less costly. But if it is so less costly and if it is too easy, why only two countries such as Russia and China is operating the SMR in the entire world right now? Because they need specialization. There are less number of companies who are interested to have this kind of investment opportunities. Mainly when we talk about this particular Holtec company, so this is trying to go public next year in India and have the small modular reactors, and here we need to keep the specialization in mind. These companies actually talk about using the spent nuclear fuel and nuclear decommissioning, and also they have designed this SMR 300 reactor. Now India on its own wants to have the SMR capabilities, because India knows that okay, China and Russia is doing well, so why not India? Because there is right now a race for SMR leadership in the entire world. China, is ahead in solar manufacturing, is ahead in electric vehicles. So India right now wants to be ahead in SMR reactors. If India is setting up a supply chain of manufacturing proper amount of SMR within the country, it can attract more investment, and maybe Indian companies can later set up SMRs in other countries. So that is the main purpose which has been discussed here. So this is actually a strategic shift in India's nuclear policy, because conventionally India is actually under a tight state control when we talk about the nuclear energy sector by the NPCIL in the country. So majorly all the activities are majorly undertaken by NPCIL. But right now when we have to slightly liberalize this sector, we are trying to bring in some reforms, mainly via amendments to Atomic Energy Act, and also some topic which has been covered in the previous Analyst via the civil liability for nuclear damage. To summarize this, what reforms we are trying to have? Mainly we are trying to have a less amount of strictness for operation of nuclear power plants by the private sector, so that they can have higher ease of doing business in the country. So that is why we have to understand that USA also gave a special clearance to us, because according to their norms of approval, there is a kind of approval named as 10 CFR 810, which is an extremely rare certification that India got, that Holtec got, to actually have technology transferred to India. And also this collaboration will be with the private sector, with the Tata services and also the L&T. So now the main significance for India is that it will be revitalizing the Indian and US civil nuclear cooperation, the nuclear deal which was signed during Obama's time, right, in 2008. And it will be also be boosting our nuclear capabilities, and at the end of the day it will be creating more jobs, and will be realizing our dream of becoming net zero by 2070, because nuclear energy is actually one of the most least polluting energies when we talk about the conventional sources. So that is where we have to now move on to the next one. The center is gathering evidence to support to remove Justice Verma, as you know, infamously, where various burnt cash was found at his residence. So this is actually a section where we are talking about the structure and organization of the judiciary, where mainly we are talking about the removal of the judges. Now, Article 124 of the Supreme Court and Article 217 of the High Courts in the country have a certain kind of provision known as the removal of the judges. Now in India, judges can only be removed both at the High Court and the Supreme Court, including the Chief Justice of India and Chief Justices of various High Court. They can only be removed in cases of proven misbehavior. In the case of Supreme Court, it means of various corruption cases and various other instances where the judges are and their behavior has not been suitable for a career in the judicial services. And also in cases of various incapacity, be it mental capacity or various other medical issues, right, and various other physical limitations. So On only these two grounds the judges can be removed, right? And they can only be removed by the process of impeachment on the order of the president. And the detailed kind of instruction, the detailed procedure is given in the Judges Inquiry Act of 1968, not in the Constitution, right? It has been given in this particular act. Now, when we talk about this impeachment process, this starts from either the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha. If it is the Lok Sabha, there have to be 50 members who have to sign this kind of motion to remove the judge. If it is in the case of Lok Sabha, it has to be 100 members. Now, once they have signed the motion, now it will be going to the Speaker of the Chairperson. If the Speaker of the Chairperson refuses, the motion will be dropped. Otherwise, it will be continued to a 3-member committee, which can be composed of a Supreme Court judge, a High Court Chief Justice, and a jurist. Now, this Supreme Court judge can also be the CJI or various other judge, right? Now, this committee will be looking into the charges. They will be framing the investigation and also all the charges, and this copy will be going to the judge so that they can also take some defense, right? And the final report is then submitted to the Speaker. Speaker will be then laying this to the Parliament debate. Now the most important thing, the Parliament will be debating here with reference to two kind of majority. Firstly, they have to approve it by a simple majority, that is a total majority of the House, right? And also 2/3 members present and voting. So a very kind of a important debate will be taking place. If after this is passed, then this is presented to the President of our country, and then the President will be issuing the order for the removal of that particular judge. So in this entire process, can you let me know whether the word impeachment is mentioned in the Constitution of India or not? Now, there have been various other key instances of impeachment in the country of the judges, but so far no judge has been impeached formally as of now. One judge, Soumitra Sen, was extremely close for impeachment, but he resigned before the voting of the same. Correct? Now we have to look into this particular matter where the previous Chief Justice, he actually formed a 3-member in-house committee. Do not confuse it with the committee formed by the Speaker later on in the Parliament. This is the in-house committee the Supreme Court judges they formed. They looked into the matter and they presented to the Prime Minister and the President. And because only the Parliament can remove the judges, that is why the Chief Justice or the Supreme Court as an institution did not remove the judge here. So that is where it brings me to the final article in the next one. IISc Bangalore has come up with a new initiative known as BHARAT. Now, this is pertaining to general science and generally awareness in the fields of biotechnology, which is an initiative to study how Indians will be aging over a period of time. We know that, in India, soon, over a period of time, the population of elderlies is going to increase drastically. And mainly when we talk about the states, we generally see the southern states of our country are rapidly aging. So that is why we need to have various policies designed for them, some schemes, some other benefits, which is why we need some data, right? And the best way of data is to actually understand how people age, because aging is actually not same for everyone. Some people can age at 50 years, some people can age at 60 years. So it depends on various factors such as genetics, cellular changes, environment, lifestyle, such as diet and activity. In recent times, as we have seen, the modern generation does not care about food or sleeping hours and so on. So please do take care of that, because the worse your lifestyle is, the faster you age. After that, we also have the habits of drinking and smoking, which also reduces your actual age. So we have to right now consider actually a term known as the biomarkers. Now, biomarkers related to aging relate to your genomic factors, proteomic factors, metabolic factors, environment, lifestyle, and psychosocial factors. That means that these are the factors which dictate how much you have aged over a period of time, right? This can be with reference to various genetic mutations. In cases of genomic factors, proteomic factors can be with reference to various protein levels and how your metabolic activities are coming forward, with reference to your glucose and lipid levels, pollution and nutrition in your area or during your diet, and also hormonal changes. So these are biomarkers. Evidence of this, for example, say if you look at C-reactive protein levels in your body, if it is low, that means you are healthy. But in Indians, they are found often to be of high levels. Also, when we talk about vitamin D, correct, this kind of level this means that it is deficient despite India being actually a sun surplus country, because sun is actually one of the most important sources of vitamin D. Also, HDL cholesterol, if it is high, that means it is good in the Western countries, but it might increase the risk of breast cancers in India. So we need a proper study, that is what, using artificial intelligence and machine learning, IISc Bangalore is trying to identify India-specific biomarkers, because we have to distinguish from the Western parameters like this, right? So that is why we have to have a proper study of the same, and we can actually have greater insights into our elderly population. So I thank you all at the very end of the discussion for being a very patient audience. Please do attempt the quiz which is following up. We will meet again. Till then, all the best and best of luck. Thank you.